Hey everyone. So this week when I was working on a transaction for another client, was able to get one done this week, hopefully. It's going to be conditional on financing and on inspection, but should inspect fine and financing should fall into place fine. So I feel pretty confident about getting another one done. Now, later on today, I'm going to be talking to all of my lead flow because I've got to find new people to be able to help as well too. Luckily, when you spend as much money on lead flow as I do, you always have new people to be able to talk to. So where they're at in that home buying process is up to them. Also some news to share. I'll do a different video about that. Let's get started on today's video. So when I was talking to all of my mortgage advisors yesterday, they all were very, very busy. Busy bees, as I like to call it. But when I finally got a hold of each of them, I asked a good question of each of them. And I asked, what are you working on? Why are you so crazy busy? And all of them told me the exact same thing. They are getting tons of phone calls from people who have mortgages already. And they've gotten their renewal notices. They bought a house 5 years ago and they're coming due for renewal. So they're getting a renewal notices and their mortgage are going up by $600 a month on average. And everybody's calling into their mortgage advisors to ask them, how do I save my house? How do I do this? How do I find $600 more a month? Is there any magic bullet you have that you could switch me over to make my payment cheaper than that? And the answer is no. I wish we taught finance in high school, but we don't any longer in Canada. So the challenge is that when things were really, really, really cheap and money was prevalent and interest rates were zero, everybody ran out and bought more than they probably should have at historically low rates. And historically low rates only have one place to go. That's up. So with the historically low rates and my business being as good as what it was, I was paying down my house very, very rapidly. With an open mortgage that was a crazy interest rate. I think it was like 4.5%, 5%, something like that. I forget, 4.5%, I think it was. But it didn't matter because I was knocking my mortgage down by working extra part-time jobs, by selling Matchbox cards, by doing everything I possibly could to get my house paid off. Because I knew that rates were going to go up and I knew that costs were going to soar. Inflation was going to come in droves. I knew that. It was very well broadcast. I'm a financial advisor. It was broadcast all over the place. Everywhere I turned, it was broadcast. Look out, because inflation's coming. Look out, because interest rates are going up. Look out. And I'm sorry, but if you didn't have a financial advisor that coached you on any of that stuff, you have the wrong financial advisor, fire them. So the question that everybody was asking their mortgage person today was, how can I save my house, Fred, Steve, Mary Ann, Sue, whoever that mortgage person is? How can I save my house? They were asking the wrong question, but they don't know the question to ask. And anymore in our society, if you don't ask the question, nobody will answer your question because they don't know what question you're asking any longer, and they don't volunteer any information. What these videos are all about is volunteering information. So instead, the question should be, how can I get debt-free in 15 years, Brian? Because that's the only way to save your house. Unless your great Aunt Gertrude dies and leaves you $15 million, then suddenly you can save your house. You can stay living in your $700,000 house, just pay it off. With great Aunt Gertrude's $15 million. Thank you very much, great Aunt Gertrude. But most of us don't have a great Aunt Gertrude. Almost all of us don't have a great Aunt Gertrude. So in this example, a person bought a house 5 years ago for $700,000. That house is now worth $775,000. I kept it very simple because it's very hard to sell a $775,000 house right now in the city of Windsor because very few people can qualify for a $775,000 loan. The government of Canada stepped in and said, we're going to make houses more affordable, and we're going to make it so that $775,000 houses aren't very affordable at all. That's why these folks are saying, how can I save my house? The government's ready to take it away from me, in essence. It's a different way to look at it. Their current payment is $3,066 a month on that $700,000 mortgage. They've lived in it for 5 years, so it's protected them from the storm for 5 years, and now they only owe $590,000 on the house. But because interest rates soared, the new mortgage is going to be $3,615 a month, and they cannot find that $600 a month. The reason they can't find that is because their homeowner's insurance soared, their car insurance soared, the costs of their cars that they have in the driveway, and they drive 2-year-old cars, their costs on that have soared, the costs of their vacations have soared, the costs of the groceries in the household of 4 have soared, the cost of heating the house has soared, the cost of clothing for the kidlets has soared, the cost of everything, every item, the cost of food, the cost of groceries every week has soared. Just literally soared. And they don't have the capacity to be able to find $600 a month. And a mortgage advisor certainly isn't going to coach you on how to budget. They're not cash flow managers. They don't have a designation in cash flow management. They don't have a degree in finance. They're just mortgage people. That's all they are. I just put mortgage together, Mr. and Mary Sue Mahaffey. I don't know how to save your house. That's up to you. What you decide to do. You control that, not us. There's no magic bullet. But there is a magic bullet. You control the magic bullet. And this is the magic bullet. I'm going to tell you what the magic bullet is right now. Are you super excited to find out what the magic bullet actually is? So the magic bullet is that right now, because they only owe $590,000 on a $775,000 house, they have $185,000 of equity. $185,000 of equity sitting there in that house. That solves a lot of financial problems. $185,000 of equity. The question becomes, how do I tap my equity? Logically, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to put the for sale sign in to capture your equity. Because when things were good and $700,000 houses were available to you, you were talked into buying a $700,000 house. You should have never bought a $700,000 house because interest rates were going up, costs were going up, the economy was booming. And then all of a sudden COVID came in and the government gave away money, which was super inflationary. That's what we're living through right now, is these government programs that created pure misery for you. Anytime the government gets involved in your life, it never ends well. So at the end of the day, the question becomes, okay, if I sell my house, I put the Real Realty for Sale sign up, and I sell my house, if I pay 5% of $775,000, that's $43,787 in commissions, Brian. Is there a way to be able to lower these commissions for you? Absolutely yes. If you want to actually get debt-free, then give me a jingle and we'll sit down and we'll get this house sold, and I'll do it for less commission because you're wanting to finally help yourself. And I like when people want to help themselves. If they want to help themselves, then I help them along too. Because I understand the struggle to help yourself. So we have $141,000 of net equity. We've sold that $775,000 house that you couldn't buy. You couldn't afford in the first place. So we then go out and we find a nice, smaller, notice there's only 2 windows in this house and a door. The last house we were living in was 3 windows and a door. So we find a really nice $470,000 house here in the city of Windsor. And these houses are beautiful. awesome. Those were the houses that you should have been buying in the first place, because then you wouldn't be in this trap. You wouldn't be trying to save something that you really couldn't afford in the first place. So now, the $470,000 house we buy, we have $141,000 to put down, the remainder of our equity, because we're just moving the equity from our big house to this other house. And so we have a mortgage now of $330,000. That mortgage payment on $330,000 is just $2,021. So we've technically cut our mortgage costs from $3,000 a month to $2,000 a month. We've freed up $1,000 a month. But we could always afford the $3,000 a month. What we couldn't afford was the $3,600 a month. So on this new house, we continue to keep paying $3,000 a month because we're used to that. In 5 years, this $330,000 mortgage is down to $225,000 if we pay $3,000 a month. $225,680 after 5 years. Think about all that equity you have. You suddenly have a $500,000 house that you only owe $225,000 on. You have even more equity than 5 years ago in this example. Then in 10 years, you owe just $148,829. Think about all that equity. It's $360,000 of equity towards your retirement funding in essence. Think about that for a minute. You're winning when you buy the right value house. The government doesn't force it away from you when it raises interest rates and when it gives everybody free money and causes inflation. You don't lose your house then. The government does these things. It's broadcast far and wide. But we don't teach any of this stuff in high school any longer, so you didn't know. You're doing your things. All of a sudden, costs have soared. And then in 15 years, if you pay $3,000 a month on a $470,000 house, in 15 years, you owe zero. Zero. House is all paid off. You suddenly, 15 years from now, you own a $520,000, let's say, $520,000 house. Free and clear, you have over $500,000 saved in the equity in your house. Nobody can take it away from you. You control it. You own that equity. Only you get to decide how you're going to tap it. If you died with a $500,000 paid off house, how much money are you leaving to your children? $500,000. How? They're going to sell the house, capture all that money. Split it between the two of them, or the three of them, or the four of them, or the five of them. You're giving them something of value. A house has tremendous value. So 15 years, you're down to zero. You owe nothing. It doesn't matter to you then 15 years from now what interest rates are. You can tell the story that everybody that I'm hearing. I hear it all the time right now. You know, back in the 1980s, Brian, remember interest rates were 16.795%. People were just turning in their houses and walking away from them. Well, hello. Don't turn in your house and walk away from it. You have this wonderful thing called equity. Tap your equity. And the only way, unfortunately, to tap your equity is to sell your massive house that you really can't afford right now anyway, and buy something far more affordable. When the bank told you that, congratulations, you qualify for $700,000, you didn't have to go out and buy a $700,000 house. You could have gone and bought a $500,000 house, and you wouldn't have this problem. You'd be fine. You wouldn't need to be talking to your mortgage advisor. You'd be talking to your financial advisor saying, can I give you a kiss because you saved me from being like everybody else who's right now, according to Brian, calling their mortgage person trying to save their houses. And because you helped me back then, I don't have to worry about my house right now. It doesn't matter to me what interest rates do. It doesn't matter at all. This was broadcast far and wide. But we don't teach it any longer. It's not taught in our schools any longer. Finance. Logical personal finance. Not taught. So, don't be too hard on yourself for the position that you're in. You're learning from the school of hard knocks. But the solution is, let's get that house sold. Let's tap that equity. Let's go buy a realistically priced house, one you can afford, and pay it off. That way, it doesn't matter. That way, you've got $500,000, in 15 years, you've got $500,000 sitting there for retirement. You come home, you drive into your garage, and you're like, this is my retirement account. This is really, really good. I can't wait to retire. I'm half the way there. I got $500,000 saved because my house is now paid off. And you're still working all the overtime and all the other stuff. You got seniority now. So every time they're calling you saying, hey, you want to work? Sure, I want to work. But you don't owe any mortgage. The money that you're earning is all yours to do with whatever you wish to do with it. Spring break's coming up. There's going to be a lot of families here in the city of Windsor that can't go anywhere because their mortgages are going up $600 a month. My mortgage is going up $0. And we're going away over spring break. We've already decided where we're going. We're going to jump in the car, one of the paid off cars, and we're going to go to Mississippi. Laurel, Mississippi specifically. And there's a specific hotel we're going to stay at. Doesn't matter what the room rate is. It's going to be overlooking the railroad track too. And we're going to step through Laurel, Mississippi, like they do on TV. It's going to be our spring break. Already got it planned. Decided on it today. Where are we going to go? I said, hey, let's go to Laurel, Mississippi, since we enjoy watching Home Time. Let's go see these houses that they've restored and stuff in Laurel, Mississippi. Let's go experience this small little town. Let's go say hi to people. Let's go meet them. Really? Sure, let's go. Because we don't have a mortgage. We owe $0. And it is south, so it's going to be a little bit warmer. Could you imagine being my age, 55, I'm 55, and living in an affordable, paid off $550,000 house? Because this 470, 15 years from now, is probably going to be worth about 550. And you're going to do some improvements to it as well, too. So it'll go up in value as well. Oh, I'm going to rip the bathroom out and redo it once I can afford to. I'm going to start setting some money aside for that. And then as soon as you have the money set aside, go ahead and redo that bathroom up there. Make it nice. You're going to stay living there for a long, long time anyway. A long, long time. In an affordable house, one you can afford. One that you can pay off. And one that when you become 55, you can say, hey, spring break's coming up. Where are we going to go? Don't you want to live your life that way? Rather than, I got to call my mortgage advisor, who's not even a financial advisor, to see if they can't help me save my house in some way. Well, there's nothing they know. They're just a mortgage advisor, for gosh sakes. They have no degrees, no responsibilities to this. They just, okay, you qualify for a $700,000 house, and then you took out a loan for $700,000. I can't tell you, I'll give you another story here quickly, because I don't want to go over the 20-minute mark here, but bear with me for a second. So when I was out looking for my first house in Toledo, Ohio, I told the realtor, I said, look, I only want to spend a maximum of $70,000. But I was approved for $110,000. I was a truck driver back then. At 23 years old, I was a very, very highly skilled truck driver. And at that time, I was making over $50,000 a year because I went to work every day. And I was going to have friends rent bedrooms from me in my house, so I could claim rental income too. And I was being easy on them. I was only charging them $250 a room. So I had $500 of potential income coming in, and I was making over $50,000 a year as a truck driver going to work every day. So the bank said, Brian, we can get you qualified for 100. I forget exactly what the number was, 110, 120, 130, whatever the number was, didn't matter to me. I told my real estate agent at the time, I said, I want to spend no more than 70. And if I can get by at 65, that's awesome for me. And she started driving me around, showing me houses. And she was showing me $85,000 houses, $95,000 houses, $100,000 houses, $110,000 houses. And I told her, we were sitting in her car. And I told her, I said, just pull over here to the side of the road, please. And she said, why, aren't you feeling very well? I said, no, I want to get out. She said, what's wrong? My perfume giving you a headache? What's going on? And I said, no, you're not listening to me. Apparently your ears are full of wax. And I'm going to get out and I'm going to walk home and I'm going to call a different realtor that can hear me. Well, what do you mean, Brian? What am I not hearing? I've shown you some beautiful houses. I said, yeah, but they're not houses that I'm going to go buy. I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting your fuel driving around with you because you're not listening to me. Your ears are full of wax. Well, Brian, hey, maybe I should start listening to you. I said, perfect. Start showing me some $65,000 and $70,000 houses. I'll stay in the car then. Oh, okay, fine. I'll start showing you some $65,000 houses. And we've seen some $65,000 houses, and I bought one for $70,000. It was a beautiful house. And my roommates made the mortgage payment, basically. And I was continuing to save money because that was important. So that by the time I got to 55, I could be living like this. I could be debt-free with paid-off cars. When spring break comes up, I can go jump in one of those paid-off cars and go to Laurel, Mississippi, because it looks like it's a wonderful place. And it doesn't matter how much money we spend down in Laurel because we'll have it all paid off by the time we come back. Because we have a vacation fund anyway set up in our budget. So it's just a different way of living. One that you've never been taught before because we don't teach it any longer. It's all about going to the bank and getting more loans. It's not about anything more than that. So thanks for watching this particular video. If you would like true guidance on how to save your house, on how to downsize to a house you can afford so that you can start living like nobody else later on. It takes time. It takes 10 minutes to get into debt, and it takes 10 years. In this case, it takes 15 years to get out of debt. 15 years to get out of debt. Are you ready yet? That's the question I ask. You have to be ready. Both of you have, especially if you're a couple, both of you have to be on the same page. What we do in my house is a little different. We have two different funds. I technically have my business account, where I'm free to go spend whatever money in my business account I wish to go spend money on. I just bought a printer the other day. I didn't need to authorize spending $250 for a printer because the printer I have up here on my desk is getting a little bit old. So I said, I should have a backup because I use my printer all the time. I'm getting a $3,000 bonus check from an insurance company for the work that I did last year, and I'm probably going to put $2,000 of that into the business, and I'm probably going to take $1,000 of that and go buy a new laptop computer because the one I have is 12 years old. It's very old. It takes very long for it to load. I don't really use it anymore, but it'd be kind of nice to have a new one. Because I don't have any debt for that $3,000, and I'm going to be investing $2,000 of that into an investable asset that's going to pay me more money back in my business. Investable assets are worth financing. As long as the cost of financing is, let's say your cost of financing is 8%, but you're expecting a 10% return from that investable asset, you're going to make 2%. It makes sense to go ahead and do that then. It's what businesses look at. Do the same thing. It's what your grandmother used to look at. She used to say, gee, that car at the car dealership is $3,000. How do I do that? So she started saving her milk money. And as soon as they got to $3,000, then they went out and bought that car. They didn't buy it any other way. It's like, gee, we need a new car. Okay, we better start saving for a new car. We've lost track of that in our society because money became free. But money that's free is like reaching across the snake pit all of the time. All of a sudden, that snake has bit you. And your payment for reaching across the snake pit is going up by $600. Stop reaching across the snake pit. Stop taking their snake oil. Start playing a different game for yourself. 0. Own your assets. Don't own your debt. Just because the government is running massive deficits doesn't mean that you're supposed to. You can control this. You have to make the hard decision to say, I got to sell my 775 because that's the only way to get my butt. It's the only way to save my butt. I have to save my butt. There is no magic pill that a financial person or a mortgage person can give me to make this all better. What's it going to be a year from now when we're back up? When interest rates go up again, because the jobless numbers just came out, 585,000 people went back to work. Yet interest rates only went up 1/4 point? No, heck no. We're going to be 8, 9, 10, 12% here very, very quickly. What do you do then? If you're here, it doesn't matter what the percentage is because you don't need it at all. Get like this. Start today. Give me a jingle, 519-995-6145, 519-995-6145. We'll see what your house is currently worth. We'll talk a little bit about some options that we have. So at least you're informed. At least you've had some guidance, some training, some support. And then if you decide that, hey, wait a second, Brian, I do want to get this fixed. It is time to start fixing my life. Then we'll go ahead and pound the sign in to capture the equity, to move the equity to a more affordable, nice house. And then we'll start on this endeavor together. And God willing, I'll still be alive at 70 years old when you're 0. I don't ever plan on retiring. I plan on having this message for everybody for a very long time. One last thing to share with you. So the transaction I did this week was for this townhome condo right here in Riverside. Great schools. Young couple coming out of Toronto. Brian, we don't want to spend a whole lot of money. They have very, very good incomes, very, very good credits. They could have gone out and bought something better. But they said, no, this is going to be good. This needs some work too. My contractor is going to be coming in and giving them some estimates and getting some of it done, some of it fixed up. And they said, this is our first house. This is a good first house. We'll be able to be in here for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years. And over that time, we'll be able to get it to zero because it is so affordable. Be like them. There's very few of them out there, trust me, but I find them. They're watching this video too, and they're calling me. And they're saying, hey, Brian, can I have a meeting with you? Because I do want to talk a little bit about this, because you're right. I'm way off track, and I need to be brought back in. And I'm thinking that you're going to be able to help me to do that. Give me a call, 519-995-6145, and we'll save your equity. We may have to get rid of your house to save your equity. Looking forward to helping you. 519-995-6145. Call me anytime. I'm here right now. Have you called yet? Have a great night.